Hey everybody. Okay, so I haven't made a YouTube video in a long time, and I was thinking, okay, I kind of want to make a video, partially just because I wanted to, do a vlog about what's been going on in my life in general, different things that are happening, but then I was like, I'm just kind of not feeling up to doing a journal online or interacting in general, and I thought, okay, well, so I got into it again with on one of Gary's Amendum's videos, which I'll link below, with an anti-natalist about the idea of imposition and how Gary has sidestepped. He totally unsubbed to me when I was just getting deep into my imposition argument. And so this continues on. This, we're never at a loss for words. It appears that no matter what argumentation there is, another person or the same person can just continue that argumentation ad infinitum. And that seems to be what it is, to speak, to argue, to maintain positions, and so forth. Anyway, so I quit smoking. One thing I'll mention is I quit smoking about 3 weeks ago. And yet, when I put this comment on, and Rignolo responded, it drove me into a meditative position again, where I felt like, damn, I really need a cigarette to meditate on this, because that's how I use cigarettes, is to, I don't know, incite some, a type of meditation that is going to improve my perception to lay out an argument. Anyway, and so I'm back at it again. Is my point, is that I'm sorry I'm not talking about all sorts of other things, and you guys can tell me, would you rather I just drop this whole anti-natalist argument or anti-natalist argument and just talk about other things? or are you okay with me doing this? Because this one got pretty steeped, and you guys can read the back and forth between Rignolo and myself on this video that I'll link. But prior to doing that, I guess you'll watch this video. And so what I wanted to point out in this video was traditional histories of the word imposition, impose, definitions that are standardized in dictionaries that have an etymology and so forth. And I wanted to point out, and I'm pointing out, that the anti-natalist is using the word impose and imposition in a special sense, a special way. I'll even call it a poetic way. But in any case, it's a special usage. It's not a common usage. And so I argued, at the end of my argument, I argued, perhaps in the future, your usage of the word imposition will be incorporated into the definition of what it is to speak about imposition. But until then, you guys are misappropriating the word, and you look like fools. You're conveying a meaning, but you look like fools when you use this. At least this is this is my contention. To me, the anti-natalist community looks foolish when they say that a parent imposes upon the child, or a parent imposes the child. And this is because probably as foolish as I am smoking. But they look foolish, and this is because in all historic definitions of the word imposition, of everything that I can find in etymology or online, the word imposition seems, to the best in which I'm able to parse through these definitions and get a sense of it, that an imposition in a non-poetic way is always from one previous or present sentient being imposing upon another previous or present sentient being. Now, I disclude future beings because you cannot impose upon that which does not exist. They firstly have to come into existence, or the future has to become the present before an imposition can be said. So there was a little back and forth about futures, where Rignall Lowe wanted to say, oh, you have to include future sentience. Anyway, and so everything that I can find on imposition is that it is a sentient being imposing upon another sentient being, and that this kind of boiled down to attributes and definitions, such as the idea that, like, for me, a sentient being is a being with a nervous system, and that being, let's say, has an ingrown toenail or an autoimmune deficiency disease, right? Something that is causing pain in the growth of that being, right? For me, that being was not, that pain was not imposed upon them by their parents. That would be a misuse. And I say that because the being itself is a being with a nervous system that has an autoimmune disease. It's a definition of what that being is. That's part of what it means to be a sentient being. Some of these beings have impacted wisdom teeth. Some of them have spinal bifida. Some of them have ingrown toenails. It's a definition of what it is to be that sentient being, right? So by no means do the parents impose a burden upon the child, because imposition, as far as all the ways that I can find it, is used where another sentient being imposes something upon a sentient being once it is here, right? And so this little parsing is it's required, because I don't want to let the anti-natalists get away with saying that imposition is something that the parents put on the child. In fact, I want to say that they are using a kind of a back-toeing, a back-stepping from the word superimposition. The word superimposition is generally referred to a graphic where you're superimposing an image upon another image. But this states a superimposition has nothing to do with burden. Yet imposition is always a burden upon another sentient being. So then we get into this idea about, okay, the definition of a being with an autoimmune disorder is a being with a nervous system that has this disease. But the disease, I'll let them get away with, they superimpose the disease upon the child, but this is not a proper use of the word imposition. The imposition is still, historically, another being imposing onto another being, not a being's being having pain. If a being's being having pain is an imposition, then this is like if I get in a car and I drive down the street and I get T-boned by a diesel. This would be like the justice system going and arresting my parents for the pain and suffering that I suffered, right? That's the way the anti-natalist is using it. They want to say because the parent is part of the causal chain, a part of the creation of this sentient being, or what I'll call, or what I have called, the composition of this sentient being. Because the parent has created this sentient being, they want to say that all pain that individual suffers is justifiably placed on the parent. It's like that. And so this is why I say they have a special usage of the term imposition and imposing, that they're trying to finagle, and the more they reiterate it, the more it's used, and the more it's used, then in the future, but not now, not in 2014, is that use a commonly standardized use of the word imposition. Now, I was accused of playing a semantics game, but I'm reversing that and saying no, it's the anti-natalist perpetuation of this misuse of the word that is the semantics game. And all that Gary has for me is not a engagement with the argument. You know, he always says argue the argument. Well, I'm arguing the argument. I'm arguing the argument, but he doesn't engage it. He sidesteps it, simply calls it, whitewashes it, and calls it a semantic game, which is ironic because it's he who is playing the semantic game, and he's reiterating it and getting other anti-natalists to reiterate this word in this special usage. Anyway, I'm not certain how to, in this video, I mean, perhaps you'll have to read what it is I'm saying. I'm not saying I don't understand the meaning that the anti-natalist is using. I'm just saying that they're importing a special usage. And that's why I keep contending that it's a misuse. Okay, so how else did this argument go? Yeah, so because I say that sentient being has an ingrown toenail and suffering pain, I say that's a definition of that sentient being. It's a definition. It's not an extra imposed attribute on the being, kind of like a bicycle. An attribute of the bicycle, a definition of the bicycle, is that it has two wheels, that it has wheels. Now, if wheels were pain, and the frame was the sentient organism, right? If the wheels were pain, and the bike, the frame was a sentient organism, it still doesn't change the definition of what it is to be a bicycle. So I guess what I'm saying is that to be sentient is to feel pain. It is to feel. By definition, you have a nervous system. So by definition, you feel the conditions of your world. Okay, so then we get into this idea about environment. And I'm saying that, okay, I argue we are indigenous to a planet, and that we could not have been born into an environment that would not allow us to be born into that environment, right? So you have to be allowed, you have to be incongruous with your environment in order to be born into that environment. It is only after you are in that environment that another sentient being can impose upon you. It is not the process itself of reproduction or regeneration. The process itself of reproduction, regeneration, creation, composition is part of the definition of what it means to be sentient and what it means to be human. So anyway, I guess what I'm asking is for any viewers out there, find any dictionary, Wikipedia, any dictionary online, any dictionary in history that says something to the effect as the identity of a being is also an imposition upon the being. Or says a parent imposes upon a child. Now, what was funny is, in the past when I was looking this up, it said something about being born, B-O-R-N-E, not B-O-R-N, right? And I sat there, and on first read, I was like, okay, I'm just going to stop saying what I'm saying, because right here it's saying born, and I was interpreting born to be born as opposed to born being to bear, right? And so it'd be funny. I just think it would be funny if an anti-natalist was to use B-O-R-N-E as a substitute for, as an argument against what it is I'm saying. You know, insisting that that kind of born is what is meant by being born, B-O-R-N. Yeah, maybe I should leave it with that. Keep it a... Shit, I thought it was a short video. I've been going on for 18 minutes. But yeah, if you guys want to link to it and scroll down, I think it's 2 main paragraphs from the top. You'll see not my engagement with logic rolls of the dice, but my engagement with Rignolo. Go ahead and see that back and forth. And I imagine it's going to continue. I imagine he's going to continue it, but I think I've made my case and I've made it clear. And if one is aspect blind to this, which is what I'm accusing the anti-natalist's misuse as being, is a type of aspect blindness where they try to superimpose being born as being an imposition upon the definition of imposition being another sentient being onto another sentient being. The government taxes the people is the root of imposition, right? If you look at the etymology, you're going to find that's first usage, or that's first common usage. That's people imposing upon other people. The government is made of sentient people. the continuation, the enforcement of the law of taxation is an imposition upon the people. Anyway, I'd be more than happy to read or see any follow-up in text or in video in my comment section showing me how it is I'm incorrect in pointing out the difference between common usage, historic etymological usage, and the as opposed, to the anti-natalist saying that this is the imposition is integral in the reproductive process. I don't know what else to say about it other than I'm making an argument not only from nature but from culture that imposition is ultimately a culturally based relationship between existing or previously existent sentience upon other present or previous sentient beings. So, yeah, that being said, I guess I'll wrap it up. What to name this video?